Howdy, howdy. We are live on another Friday night with no new episode of Trek, sadly, to discuss this week. But that's okay, though. We still have a lot to discuss. I feel like I do a lot of that. I'm always like, well, we have a lot to discuss. Like I say that like every week, don't I? But we really do. Like this week, it's so much. It's the ending.
Crazy.
Yeah, the ending of a Trek show for the first time since 2005. Like
we're discussing the totality of Star Trek.
Or at least
this is the first time I've ever watched a Star Trek like series finale live.
That's crazy.
Oh, interesting.
Because that's how long it's been.
Yeah, we're going to talk about Picard season 3 that I know a lot of y'all really liked. We're going to talk about the season as a whole. We're going to talk about what we hope happens next in the post Picard world that we are now entering. So, really looking forward to a lively discussion. I think we can go ahead and get the show started. I'm Fathery.
This is Dave.
I'm Rachel.
I'm Aaron.
And this is Tex-Trek.
Engage.
Welcome back aboard the Starship Texas for the 240th installment of the Tex-Trek podcast, the home of Star Trek fandom from deep in the heart of Texas, where we take a deep look at Star Trek, old and new. And tonight we're taking a deep look at Star Trek Picard, both the entirety of its third and final season, which just concluded last week, as well as the entire life of the show from all the way back when Sir Patrick Stewart himself made that announcement in Las Vegas that Jean-Luc Picard is back. That was what, 2018? Yeah, August of 2018. So
I'd say 20 years ago. Like, wow.
I believe it at this point. Was the way the last couple of years.
Yeah, time is really weird. Everything
it's such an action movie thing. Picard is back.
That's what he said. He said like Jean-Luc Picard is back, and then the crowd. Well, you could hear one guy like close to the camera just be like, "Oh shit!"
I saw that video. That's how I saw the announcement.
I like that. It's like the fan reactions.
You know
in
what?
Marvel Endgame.
That year, here's something that some of y'all might remember, if anyone has stuck around the Tex-Trek audience since 2018. But that year I was saying if Alex Kurtzman really wanted to impress all of us now that he is in charge of not just Discovery, but developing new Star Trek shows it was CBS All Access back then, for CBS All Access. If he really wanted to impress all of us, then at San Diego Comic-Con the summer in July of 2018, he will go out in front of the world on the stage and be like, "Hey, Patrick Stewart is back," and then pull out Patrick Stewart to like announce like a new Picard show. And then that didn't happen at San Diego Comic-Con, but then it did happen just like 2 or 3 weeks later in Las Vegas. I was like, wow, like Alex Kurtzman is clearly part of the Tex-Trek audience. And so I'm sure
you know what, Father,
he's gotten a lot of good ideas from us.
I think it's more likely that you're one of the prophets. You don't experience you experience all time simultaneously. So
maybe I
the orb of green lighting or something like that.
I had a secret parent who was a prophet.
just kind of snuck in. But yeah, no, that's pretty cool.
No, it's cool. Yeah, it's something like that. Just I've told this story before, but I guess I'll tell it again. In one moment after I say thank you to our Patreon supporters, because we got to do that at the top of the show, right? So I'll tell that story in a second, but before I do, I want to say thank you to our lovely Patreon supporters. That's Starfleet, Sohel, Cake is Eternal, Crazy Dutchie, Joanne Robertson, John Dog, Geek Filter, Earl Grey, Trekkie, Quark Spar, Benginium, Stephanie Durantes, Matthew Averett, and our anonymous supporters. Thank each and every one of you so very much. One of you, actually, Aaron, right here, it's your birthday coming up very soon on May 19th.
Yes.
So to celebrate,
Apparently it's almost May. I don't know how that happened. But...
yeah. Well, to celebrate the eventful occasion, we will be watching the 2-part Voyager episode, Future's End, that you selected on May 20th. It's a Saturday afternoon. We're doing it at 3:30 Central. Yeah, Future's End, parts 1 and 2. That's when the Voyager came back in time to 1996 LA. Tom Paris got to flirt with Sarah Silverman. Tuvok got to wear a do-rag. Really cool, really fun. Janeway got to walk around dressed up as Hillary Clinton, as Aaron likes to point out. So yeah, it's
there's is there something akin to a car shuttlecraft chase?
Yes, at the end, I think.
Yeah, there's
sort
some
of on the road.
God, this should be fun. It's been a long time since I've watched those episodes.
Yeah, it's very 90s. They run into like some like far right anti-government militia types. You know, that was
which now seems much more realistic.
Yeah. Well, yeah, that's crazy. We don't see that.
That was trendy back then. That was trendy for a while.
That's true. Yeah.
You know, the pre 9/11, like the post Reagan pre 9/11 era. That was, you know, we had the Waco and Oklahoma City,
the Oklahoma
sure.
bomber.
Yeah. So yeah, but you know, Future's End, it's fun. It's good 2-parter. So, you know, we'll double up. And, you know, normally we just watch like a single episode, but because it's Aaron's
and if you haven't watched
birthday.
Voyager much, it's pretty easy to figure out what's going on, because a lot of it's just fish out of water
Yeah.
sort of thing.
That's like the beauty of City on the Edge of Forever, right? It's like, these are like the weirdos from another time and place, but like I'm familiar with like the world they're visiting, so it's still kind of approachable.
Plus, if you watch with us, we can tell you what's going on with them.
Yeah, but you know, you could also tell us things too, because you know, you have the option to unmute your mic. Everyone can speak. You get like a community commentary over the episode. So, and if you know, if you're mic shy, I don't want to say camera shy, but like mic shy, if you don't want to speak in public, you know, some people just chime in through the chat. You can just type away your thoughts and observations.
Yeah, where possible, we try and like, you know, read those while we're going, so that everybody can kind of participate, and we can all be communal and cool.
And speaking of being communal, you know what, this is gonna be like a really cool, fun announcement that I wanted to make. But you know, we do have a lot of conversations in the Tex-Trek Discord server, so people can join. You know, anyone can come into the Discord. We do the Patreon watch parties there. You have to sign up for the Patreon to get into those. It's $2 a month, or if you want to be more generous, we have some other perks if you want to come in at a higher tier. But other than that, the Discord's open to everyone. And one of our regulars in the audience I see is here now. Joel has been pretty active in the Discord, so I'm hoping that he can continue to help out over there. And I actually want to extend an invitation to Joel to come into the monthly watch parties as a sign of appreciation of all the threads and stuff that he tries to help out with in the Discord server. So Joel, that's really appreciated, and I hope that you can join us if you're free on May 20th at 3:30 p.m. Central. We'll be watching Future's End.
Hell yeah.
And as I was saying a moment ago, though, like, as the story I was going to tell about just how much things have changed. I was at a convention here in Austin, Texas in 2012. They were celebrating the 25th anniversary of TNG. It wasn't a Star Trek convention. It was a shitty Wizard World convention that I guess they don't do here anymore. But they don't put on great cons. It's normally like the same guests at all their conventions if they're still in business. But anyways, this was actually like a rare big win for them. They had the entire TNG cast. I don't think they had Denise Crosby, but they did have Will Wheaton, and then the big seven, all together on stage together, which was a rare feat. That was a rare thing to happen at any convention. And I just remember like going to that panel. It was so fun. It was so exciting to see all those actors together. And during the Q&A, someone did ask, hey, it's the 25th anniversary. Y'all ever gonna like do something, like maybe like do like another show or a movie or anything like that? And you just felt like such like a like the actors on stage, they just felt like, oh, that was absurd. There's like no way, like we're done. Nemesis was it. They didn't want us back for another movie. They do these modern Star Trek movies with Chris Pine and these Kelvin actors. And I was like, yeah, like it's foolish to ever think that would ever happen. And, that was just 11 years ago. So, it wasn't that long ago. Look at how far we've come since then.
It turns out there are always possibilities.
Yeah, that's what Chekhov said. And that's what Spock said. And that's what Kirk said when Kirk quoted Spock in The Wrath of God.
I call him Chekhov Jr.
Chekhov Jr.
But yeah, it is a wild turnaround, and it does, like, I've noticed just in the modern era with prestige TV and more genre productions because of things like, I'm sure, Game of Thrones and what's the sci-fi one, the Expanse and stuff like that.
Oh, yeah.
But also, like, if a genre movie flops, like, it used to be like, oh, I guess we'll never see anyone touch that again. But now you could wait like 3 years, 5 years, somebody else will take another shot at it. And it can feel like a little much sometimes, but it's also something that never would have happened before. That property would have been dead in the water.
Yeah, and I think like just having streaming services where you don't have to be as like beholden to like Nielsen ratings of people being home at a very specific time, which doesn't work for like the way my generation watches TV, or like box office, which is like I've now it's like every movie that doesn't break $1 billion, they're like, is it a flop? And you're like, can we not have like mid-earning movies anymore?
Yep.
No, because the theaters they need the $1 billion movies to stay in business. But yeah. I hate that that's the world. That's why it's taken so long to give us another Star Trek movie, because Paramount Pictures is like, no, if we do this, we're going to need it to be like a big blockbuster. We need
it didn't make Transformers money. I remember that was like the thing at the time.
They want like another Top Gun Maverick. Like that's like the reason why Paramount Pictures is doing like a little bit better than some other Hollywood studios is because Top Gun Maverick performed so well. So
yeah.
And yeah, it's sad that because I don't think Star Trek is a property that does like Marvel numbers, that does Star Wars numbers. It's
I think it also, I don't know that Star Trek necessarily translates as well to like foreign audiences. And that it might be a little too wordy to like
great overseas.
Yeah.
It does, good in the US, and then, it'll do decent in the UK and Germany and some of the English speaking
seems to not exist.
Yeah, it's like I think it's Star Trek in general is pretty wordy, which just makes it harder to translate.
That would make sense.
Yeah.
But it does seem like
the Kelvin movies translate.
Like that's true. More action packed.
The only people who I guess like really like enjoyed the translation, I guess, was like the Germans, because like that's the only place where like Trek is like as big as it is in English speaking countries is in German speaking.
You can get more books there on German on Audible than you can like American books. Or English books, sorry.
I think the reason, Fathery, that like Trek got the second chance is because franchises are huge now, and they do still want bankable franchises, even if they're not quite the highest of high tiers. They're always looking for something that has a pre-built audience, and we kind of got lucky that the Kelvin movies revived that interest, and they were able to right as like streaming services like Paramount Plus hitting, looking for a flagship, all that stuff.
And they always turn to Trek when they need, like that was in the 70s, as Aaron is pretty well versed in the Trek history of the 1970s, but the whole idea with Star Trek Phase 2 or Star Trek 2 or whatever, that was going to be on Paramount's new network. They were going to launch a fourth network,
PTN, Paramount Television Network.
And then they didn't do that. Then we got the motion picture and the movies instead. But they tried that again in the 90s with UPN, and the flagship show of UPN was Star Trek Voyager. That was the premiere of UPN. Was the premiere of Voyager. And then when they went to
close it out too, I wonder.
I mean, UPN was not around very long.
Enterprise came closer to close. I think that was the last year of UPN, I think, was like right after Enterprise got canceled, which is
Oh,
sad
okay.
that Enterprise did get canceled, because even when it went down, it was still the highest rated show on that network. All
I
4 seasons.
was
Low
so I
bar.
like someone once asked, because around the time I got into Star Trek, like I think Enterprise would have like still kind of been on the air. But someone was like, "So you didn't start trying to watch Enterprise?" I was like, "I lived overseas, and Enterprise was on a network that doesn't even exist anymore. Like, we did not have UPN."
Well, a lot of people here didn't have it either. So
So I think that answers your question.
But I guess the big picture is they always come crawling back to Trek.
yeah, they do.
They always
because of the built-in audience.
They come looking for
Yeah.
permission to board.
And it feels like we're getting like, that base is just getting bigger.
Yeah.
Thanks
well,
to all
yeah.
the other.
Speaking
We're
of
assimilating more and more people.
Speaking of the end of Enterprise and the demise of UPN, we are now at the first time a Star Trek series finale has occurred since 2005 with Enterprise.
That's
I guess
crazy.
Controversial ending. This one though seems to be much more well received.
See, this would have made sense for Will Riker and Deanna Troi to be there. So
Let me quick. I have a quick question, having never seen the Enterprise ending. It's a real fast one. I think I've even asked this before, but other than the book end with Riker and Troi, which I know about, was the rest of the episode okay? Like just if they hadn't had that tacked on,
That's the entire episode is
Yeah.
Riker in the holodeck.
Oh
Yeah.
wow. Okay.
Yeah. He's just in every scene basically
Rough
as
call,
someone
rough
else
call.
or
I
observing.
guess I
And,
can
like,
see why
also
that didn't.
because, and I'm not as familiar with Enterprise, and it's been a long time since I watched this finale. They also end up jumping ahead in time to right.
Yes.
So you were like,
So
miss
they-
a whole
so you
lot of
could
these
see,
characters'
like-
history because of this decision.
Yeah, and you see
And now-
Hoshi and Travis never get promoted. They stay ensigns for 10 years, had it much worse than Harry Kilm. To Paul and Trip, nothing ever happens with their romance. It's like all the cool things that you hoped would happen. We're just gonna do an episode set in the future to tell you none of that happened.
in that holodeck program though, because if you actually look now at the also canonical Starfleet Museum, we see the refit NX-01. You do not see that in that world.
I
which
do
it
like
should
the
be.
theory
So I think it just
that Riker's
that's all.
I do like the theory that Riker's holodeck simulation is not accurate.
See that
It's just badly written history.
That seems less likely to me that Riker's holodeck program was inaccurate, and what's more likely is the NX-01 probably got its refit at some point after it was like mothballed. Like it got pulled back out for some reason.
I've also seen theory that can I spoil this? I don't know. This episode's
Yes.
like 10 years old.
What are you spoiling?
So the fate of a character.
From Enterprise?
Yes.
Yes.
I think it's okay.
Okay. I would say there's a character that you see pass away, and I've seen a theory that maybe that is just what's on the history books, and maybe there's another secret life.
Yeah, there is a book by Andy Mangles, and I can't remember his.
Okay, I
co-author.
thought
even what they do in the book though, it still doesn't make sense because of the time that they try to move that to. I
think just ignoring the fact that the story, whatever, but the fact that they try to bring Riker and Troi back in the middle of the Pegasus episode, and clearly they did not
Pegasus,
look anything but then. And
you're also
there's a tiny swap of carpet,
10
and
years,
the carpet
in the middle of this episode.
Yeah, exactly.
And
it's cringy. Oh
yeah.
If you ever watch Pegasus, you're so half the time I'm like, wait, when did this happen?
Yeah.
When did they go?
Well,
maybe that isn't even real. Maybe it's all like a program within a program within a program.
I don't know. I lost my train of thought. But
shall we jump to Picard and get this thing a rolling?
Before this turns into like a Enterprise series finale
recap
stream.
Too late.
But they did the fun part about watching that episode is they did allow so many people who worked on Star Trek to show up.
Yeah.
It's cool. I know some of these people
in
now, and Larry's in there, and also
Dave Rossi.
The writer assistant, the lowly writer's assistant that they had at the time, Terry Metalis, is in there. He gets to walk around in a Starfleet uniform. Well, Aaron,
They
you should know who that is because you have footage provided to us of him at the IMAX screening you attended last week. Was it last week or the week before? Oh, it was last week, right? Yeah, we were
week.
saying
It feels
time
like
is weird.
3
now.
months
Time
ago.
is
I,
weird.
I don't
Yeah,
know anymore.
exactly.
Just too much happened to me last week and this week.
Yeah, this is like literally 9 days ago.
What?
So.
Oh my gosh, you're right. Wow. Okay. That is kind of crazy because it feels like a long time ago at this point.
Mm-hmm.
But we are at like an interesting point now, seeing the reaction to the end of Picard. Just we've talked a lot about how like the live action Star Trek shows of the current era, like they have historically, I think, disappointed or underwhelmed with some of the finales. I think this one is going to be considered one of the strongest, or possibly like the strongest. So it kind of ended on a strong note. Aaron, you were at the premiere. I want to ask,
Yes.
what was kind of the general vibe? You said it was at the premiere at the beginning of the season. You said it was like it felt different than the other premieres you'd gone to, right?
Oh yeah, the one that we did at Man's Chinese. There was like one, it felt historical, like there was an importance because we were at a historical landmark at the same time, like the place
Sure.
compared to, I mean, the Cinerama Dome was also very historical, but it had a 60s vibe. There's something different. It was like old school Hollywood, and the fact that everybody was kind of all dressed up, and it just, it just felt like something important was happening. You knew that it was like, okay, this is the last season. And the fact that everybody like on the street was treating it that way too, like everybody was excited for us, and we're just like, as somebody who grew up in the 80s watching Star Trek and like getting beat up for it, basically, it's very strange to be like, okay, I'm in a Star Trek uniform. I don't know what's going to happen. And people are like, that's amazing. I'm like, uh-huh. It's just like it was very discongruent in my head. But yeah, so that was, I think that just the other two were okay, but like the reaction to both of those shows were like, okay, we don't like Discovery. Tell us what we're not going to like about Picard. That's how a lot of people that came to see the show came in, which was weird. And these are Star Trek fans that are part of like the LAOA group. And it's just like, clearly they had this sort of like, nope, I'm not going to like this. So the fact that they came into this third season, I was Amy Nelson wants to know, what cosplay do you wear? Right now I'm just doing, I had the Picard season 3 uniform. I had season 2 before that. And I have my night shift TNG improv show thing, which is my blue science outfit. And I have a friend who does my Trill makeup. So that's fun to do like 20 minutes before a show is supposed to go on.
Well,
there's been times where it's just like it looks like he was like got drunk or something.
How did things compare to going to the finale, seeing that at the IMAX screening you went to? Do you think like that? I know it's not going to be anywhere near like that same level of energy because
right,
that's just the nature of the beast. Like premieres are always more exciting than finales, but
yeah.
How did that compare to other events like this you've gone to?
I would say there's like two levels of it. One, people were just ticked off at how technically inept everything happened. It was just the GoPhobo site kept crashing. And this is something I'll mention now because I didn't want to say it like a week and a half ago. The theater was not full, which has to make people who didn't get in pissed off. I was one of those people who wouldn't have got in if somebody hadn't invited me. Like I didn't get a note about like here's your come here because we've got extra seats and put you on a waiting list or anything. Didn't happen.
So weird.
Yeah, it was very strange.
Yeah,
but the general mood of everybody in line was like, we were all very excited. Everybody was having fun. We ended up having it very much delayed, but that was because they were recording the video that everybody saw across the country, the panel. So they made the popcorn like at 4:00 in the afternoon. So by the time we got our popcorn at like 10:00, it was just not good.
No.
But I kept the box and I actually made some popcorn for tonight.
That's cool. You got a Star Trek Picard box. Yeah, it's got like
it looks because I'd seen a couple pictures of a couple people. That looks like nicer, like a nice laminate, like
yeah, it is.
And I thought it would be.
It has the.
It's also weird. My camera is blurring out the background behind Picard as if he's a person. That is very weird.
Well,
Oh, I
he has
just thought
he
that
has
was
a
an
very
effect from the box.
No, it's just like there's no the Titan is not there. That's just weird.
It
He
just
has a
really
very
wants you to
photogenic
look at
face.
Patrick Stewart's face, which, like, fair. We're here to talk about him.
Cameras like his face. Like that's a big part of why
Mhm.
he had the career that he had.
So
Well,
waiting to get in though, it was that was fun. And like I said, it was delayed, but then we started noticing, oh, there's LeVar Burton, there's Jonathan Frakes, like people just randomly walking back and forth, and we're just like, we didn't realize that they were there at first because we'd heard that it was also being done at the Academy, but it's an
Mhm.
Academy screening that just happened to be at the same theater we were at.
Ah.
So that was kind of cool. And Todd Stashwick came out, and there's two stories to the theater. I don't think I've ever seen anybody go to the second story. I don't know what's up there, but they must be like rooms or something, because that's where they were going up and down to. But he went to the landing and just basically, gave a salute, and then like a Vulcan salute after that. It's like, Captain Liam, Captain Shaw. My brain is like melted. Captain Shaw out. So, and I took a picture of that, and he retweeted it, which was kind of cool.
Nice.
Yeah.
Well, we
So
actually,
that was really cool. And then they came by and they stopped. Patrick Stewart actually, he didn't sign anything, but he did come by and like say hello and shake hands, which he doesn't rarely do, from what we understand.
Yeah, I think I've read somewhere he doesn't sign anymore because of arthritis.
Yeah, we know he has
like,
bad
I'm
arthritis.
Yeah, so
I'm
it's
lucky
hard
that
for
I
him
got
to
something
like grab a
signed
pen.
from the premiere.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Which, like, if he was to sign stuff, I would imagine he would do it ahead of time where he could like pace himself or like.
Yeah. So, we went into the theater, and, everybody's got their seats, and this usher came up to me and goes, "Excuse me, do you know where you're sitting?" I'm like, "Oh God, what did I do?" He's like, "That's where Patrick Stewart sat in the he's like, have fun." I'm like, "Okay, that's weird." And I actually saw a picture. I was like, "Oh, that's me down there." Nope, that's the head of Patrick Stewart.
well, you all have similar
Which is funny.
heads.
Yeah. It's like, wait, my glasses are not
I do
that big.
like the idea this usher was like, I've got to tell the Star Trek fan that he's sitting in the same spot.
Yeah, I
Patrick
think
No,
that's
that's
Stewart was.
cool. That's cool. I'm so glad that he took the time to tell you that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was like, I thought that was very cool. And everybody's like, how many times did you say engage while you were sitting in the chairs? And those chairs I've never been to this IMAX theater, and they have buttons that you can like practically lay the seat flat. I mean, you could fall asleep in these things.
Oh God, the
It's
recliner at
amazing.
the theater by
Yeah.
me. I've thought about it. I'm like,
Well, one time I was at a film festival here in Austin having a conversation with this dude about the sound effects in old school vintage kung fu movies, and how like the newer movies need to have like the like this loud punch sound, not realistic, but they're satisfying to hear, when people get punched or kicked, the sound
Mhm.
effects. And I didn't realize who I was talking to, and then someone who worked at the movie theater came by and told me, like, yeah, that was the RZA from Wu-Tang Clan. And I was like, oh wait, it totally was. Yeah, that's awesome. I just had like a conversation about kung fu movies with
I love
one of the most iconic rappers in the music scene. So
I love the
funny.
idea that he was probably like, this guy's so cool. He's not asking me anything about the music.
Yeah, I'm sure that was exactly the
That
case.
actually is a really good way to interact with
Yeah.
celebrities, if you do not talk about what they're famous for.
yeah,
Right.
if you want to talk to Armin Shimmerman, bring up Shakespeare. If you want to talk to William Shatner, bring up horses. Like if you want to talk to
Don't
Michael
just-
Dorn, bring up airplanes.
Right. Everybody gushes at them, so you can
Yeah.
distinguish yourself if you don't.
Well,
Yeah.
Aaron, you also had some footage of the, I guess, like the introduction before they they started rolling the episodes.
Even though we weren't part of the panel or anything like that, we sort of lucked out because a couple people stayed and watched it with us. Not the big people, obviously, but Terry Metalis introduced us. We had Ashley Sharp Chestnut, I think that's her name, and Todd Stashwick was there, as well as one of the composers and apparently somebody who was like an ensign who died. But they were all in our row, which was kind of cool because like,
Nice.
oh, this person walking by looks like, oh, it is Todd Stashwick. Okay. Which I had seen. I met him like before anybody even knew who he was really on the show, like one episode or whatever, at his book signing. So that was kind of cool. So at least I did have a chance to chat with him before like it would have got mobbed or something by Star Trek fans. So,
right,
but that was cool. So yeah,
That's
we
cool
got
as
an
it would be
introduction
for like the
finally.
big people to have stayed. I kind of get why they were like, no, I can't stick
Yeah.
around. Like,
No, I totally get that, which is fine. And they just saw it, so there's no reason for them to like sit down and watch it again. I think that would probably be like a little crazy.
yeah.
But
Well,
yeah.
I'm gonna play what you recorded, so hopefully
Okay.
everyone can hear
And
this.
pardon the
Clearly.
quality. I was not really intending to record anything. I didn't think I was going to have that. And then I tried to run it through this audio processor, and it eliminated the people on stage and got the guy sitting next to me go making weird noises and stuff. I'm like, okay, that's just disconcerting. So I just left it how it is.
Yeah, well, but AI can't get everything right. But yeah, here we go. Here's Aaron's report from the IMAX screening of the Star Trek Picard series finale.
For all of this, but I'm not alone, actually. I'd like to introduce Ashley Sharp Chestnut, also known as Sydney LaForge, who has stolen all her this season.
Hi, thank you so much for welcoming me into this franchise. This has been a dream. Thank you so much.
So we wanted to do a really a special introduction for you all. Now, I imagine most of you saw the last episode, right? Pretty much all of you saw it, right? Captain Shaw. I know.
People will understand.
You know Peter Pan? You know if you clap really hard? If you clap really hard, maybe we can harder! Maybe we can do it. Captain Shaw! Captain Shaw! Captain Shaw! Captain Shaw! Ladies and gentlemen, the finest captain in all of Starfleet. Todd Stashwick, Captain Liam Shaw.
Don't you forget about me. Thank you all so much. Ridiculous the way I've been memed. How about that, right? Come on. Frontier Day, on the other hand. So again, I'm going to echo exactly what Ashley said. The way that we have been welcomed into the Star Trek family by you all has been humbling beyond words. And before I openly weep like a child, we're going to let you watch the last 2 episodes of Star Trek Picard. It's a banger. I'm gonna say that. It's a banger. Spoiler alert. No, I'm not gonna give any spoilers. There is one spoiler. Keep your ears peeled for an amazing audio cameo that we were thrilled to have. So
Yeah, you won't miss it.
You won't miss it.
Don't worry about
It's so good. It's so good. So
before we go, there's a couple people in the audience. We have 3 celebrities in the audience. One's my mom.
yes.
2 is Olivia Younger's Ensign Riggs, who didn't make it. Well, maybe probably she just rests.
She's
Maybe
resting.
stand up.
She's
Olivia. There we go. She's resting. She'll be okay. And Frederick Weedman, one of our composers whose music you're going to hear. Freddie, where are you? Stand up. There you go. Nice. Incredible music. I hope you all love this. It came from the heart from all of us. It means so much that you made it out here tonight to watch it. Thank you. And roll it.
I gotta get a big long and prosper. You did it. You were blinking.
This is all for you guys. Thank you.
Thank you.
The other side of the selfie. Yeah, I had it cut right before he took out his camera, so I immediately hit record again. So there was a little bit of a blip there, but
That was really
And
cool.
it does look smoother when it's not streaming. It's a little
Thank
bit
you
choppy.
That's
for sharing that, Aaron.
You're
and,
welcome.
Yeah, that was great.
I should have said this before I hit play on that, but that was Terry Metallis's voice at the beginning, introducing the other guest that showed up. But yeah, it's cool to see like that enthusiasm. It's cool to have like these new actors. You know, like they're not just relying solely on the popularity of the TNG cast of like the legacy actors and stuff. You like look
Mhm.
how excited everyone is about Captain Shaw, and I guess he's gonna get like a Dr. Kolber resurrection. Like, oh no, we killed too popular of a character. Let's bring him back. But you know, like,
Trek really does have a history of that.
But they've kept some people dead.
yeah, I mean, resurrection happens sometimes in Star Trek.
Oh, I just
And he
meant
did mention
specifically
that lieutenant was just resting. So you know.
specifically about bringing back. Oh no, this character's too popular.
Or they just do it as a joke, like Shax in Lower Decks.
Yes,
But
this is true.
I still am kind of upset by that because it did feel like it did some really emotional, like actual emotional stakes, and then he came back.
Mhm.
But
Like,
that was the joke. Is that like the
I
characters?
know it was a joke, and it's like Matt,
Like Rutherford
Mike
went
McMahon
through
and I
that
have
too.
debated this like over and over again. So it's like I'm just
I
not
mean,
going
I
to
get
agree with
this.
him.
The show's
I get it, I
primary
get it.
objective is to be an animated comedy Star
I
Trek.
know.
So
I like that
yeah.
but you can't having the real emotional stakes makes that humor that much better. I think.
Yeah, and I'm of
You
the
care
same
about the
mind as you,
characters.
Aaron. I was kind of disappointed to see that because I also like really enjoyed that death, but you know, it's like,
Yeah.
well, they chose the humor side, which is
Yeah,
the
and
prerogative
the
of
way
that
they
show.
explained him, like, okay, this is cool because it does happen so often. So it's like,
But I gotta say, like, I'm very optimistic. I'm enthused about Star Trek right now. I think the last
Same.
12 months were really great. Just to put it in perspective for everyone, you know, about a year ago, it was May 5th when we had the Picard season 2 finale and the Strange New Worlds premiere. And you know, that like that
Yeah.
a lot of people had issues with season 2 of Picard, but I do think a lot of people think that they liked where things ended. And you know, it was satisfying seeing the arc that they did with Q and all of that, and then finally getting like back into space back in the 25th century there at the end, and we were all very primed and excited going into season 3. And then we had 10 episodes of Strange New Worlds, which I think was a real treat. A lot of people loved that show. I think it's my favorite of the new stuff, certainly in live action. Speaking of which, though, I love the animateds. We had Lower Decks season 3 last year. That was my favorite of the 3 seasons of that show. I really loved the second half of Prodigy season 1 that we got at the end of the year last
Yeah.
year.
Mm-hmm.
That was
So
amazing.
the episodes 11 through 20 were all top notch. And this season of Picard, which has been incredibly well received. So that was a damn good, last year, the last 12 months of Star Trek, pretty freaking good.
Father, there's so much Star Trek material that I can skip over one of them. I never fell into Lower Decks and still have a ton of material. You could do that with 2 or 3 shows and still have stuff.
Yeah, like
I still have new Discovery to watch. Like,
Yeah,
I'm still
Aaron hasn't
catching up.
kept up with Discovery. And I think that's fine. That's actually, I think, the model that they're going for is they're not worried like making shows for everyone. They're trying to target different demographics, and which is a little weird for the Trek fandom, and some people aren't happy with that. But that's the reality of their business model.
I feel like the business model makes sense, especially if they want Star Trek to last beyond like everyone who's like in love with like the idea of just TNG.
Yeah, I'm
it
very
keeps it from-
curious.
But we also that was just TOS, so it should happen because
Yeah.
TNG was never supposed to be that either.
Yeah,
Mhm.
it's weird to me now that TNG is more popular than TOS. Like
It's also
20, 30
the old Trek.
Yeah. People call TNG. The first time I heard that was shortly after Star Trek 09 came out. I was talking to someone who they hadn't watched much Star Trek, but they saw Star Trek 09, and he thought it was interesting that they had the flip phone type communicators of the original series. He was like, yeah, like didn't in the old show didn't they like didn't like the bald guy like tap his chest to like talk to people? He's like the bald guy. He's like, yeah, like the bald guy and the robot is like, you're talking about like TNG. You're calling TNG the old show? Like, I was alive for that one. It ain't old.
See, I wasn't alive for most of TNG, so sorry.
Well, yeah, I mean, eventually Prodigy will be old. Eventually you'll have people talking about like, yeah, like I'm a grown person now, but when I was a little kid, I watched Star Trek Prodigy. Back in the old days, back in like the 2020s.
Before the waters rose and destroyed us.
Before World War III. But at least we made that canonical. Star Trek called it right.
But yeah, this level of variety means that Star Trek doesn't get too samey. There's a close enough vibe between TOS and TNG that and really all the way. There's a certain shared stuff. Honestly, maybe Deep Space Nine was maybe the biggest break.
I mean, I think there was
for a good while.
There is a good bit of variety in the legacy shows. Like I think Star Trek the animated series, Star Trek Deep Space Nine, and Star Trek Enterprise are all three, pretty different things. But yeah,
Prodigy
not
and
the same level.
Prodigy and Lower Decks in particular are departures.
Yeah, well,
like a very overtly all ages one Picard, and a very overtly comedic one that's only a half hour. That breaks format.
I think Picard in and of itself was a big departure. Kind of less focused on Starfleet.
Which had the possibility of being interesting, but sometimes just wasn't, at least for me.
Yeah.
They wanted to be like a more mature, more adult show where people say F-bombs. But yeah, we definitely there is always like a bit of variety with the Star Trek shows, but much more now.
Yeah.
But with season 3 as a whole, now we can look back at it. Like I'm curious to ask y'all, just the story of the entire season. I know we all enjoyed it. We've all said pretty good things about it. I think it's safe to assume do we consider it the strongest of the 3 seasons of Picard?
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
Yes. I guess is there anyone who doesn't see it that way?
That would be interesting. I think
I
am more positive about the first 2 seasons of Picard than a lot of people are, and I don't love either of them. My feeling is I really enjoy the first episodes and I really enjoy the last episodes of both seasons, and somewhere in the middle there's I'm not sure what's happening. I'm just gonna watch on Picard act and let a vibe happen because I'm not sure what's going on.
Yeah, they were notably uneven, but I remember I really liked Seven and Raffi running around in the 21st century.
And I know
bits and pieces throughout.
And I
of course.
know there was a lot going on behind the scenes in season 2, especially with coming right back after COVID. I remember hearing, I'm not sure how true this is. I've heard this somewhere that they had to rewrite it so they would be outside more because they couldn't. Because of everything with COVID, they had to film outside more, and so they had to rewrite episodes so they would be outside. And I was like,
"That's wild."
I was like, "That sounds miserable."
I feel bad for them.
And they spent too much money in season 2, and they didn't have a lot of money for season 3. And there's a lot of interesting things going on with Picard. But
there's a reason they're on that that they're in that bar set so much.
I didn't dislike either of the previous 2 seasons. I really liked Picard season 1. I just had some issues with how it ended. But I really outside of the last 3 episodes of Picard season 1, I very much liked that show, and there's a lot of stuff I liked in those final 3. With season 2, there's a lot that I loved in season 2, things that I liked much more than stuff in season 1. There was also a lot of things that I disliked more than I disliked anything in season 1. So season 2 is more of a uneven ride for it. Was a lot more inconsistent. But the first half of season 2, I watched all of season 2 right before season 3 premiered a couple months ago, and I had forgotten how much I really, really loved that first half of season 2. It's only when they go to the astronaut ball, that's when things start going downhill for me. With the writing. It never got back to how good I thought it was. I think they stuck the landing, or at least for me they did. But it never got back to, I think, the potential of the early season 2.
I can definitely see that. And you know what I will say, anyone who hasn't, because I think season 1 of Picard also suffered from when it aired and everything else that was going on. that I
What was
went.
everything else going on? Was it just middle of the
It was middle of
start of the
COVID
pandemic?
starting.
Yeah.
So, like, for instance, I watched the first episode of Picard. I went to a bar and watched it like on a screen, and the last episode of Picard fully locked down. So I think I like maybe wasn't able to like appreciate the like messaging of it as much because there was like so much going on that like I went right
It's
before
hard to
season
maintain
2.
even Trek's hope in that environment.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And back
today I was going through. Oh, sorry.
So, right before season 2 is going to start, I like rewatched it all and I was like, oh, I enjoy this a lot more. I don't know if it was binging it. I don't know if I was just in a better mindset to like not freaking out about the potential end of the world. Like,
yeah, I was looking through Facebook today and I saw our improv group like community section, which has now been abandoned because there is no community anymore, unfortunately. And it was just like the header is a picture of like Girardi at the controls of the La Serena, and it just says like all in-person screenings have been canceled, and it's like with like, you know, it's like it had like this weird like kind of like virus alert. I'm like, it was way more cheerful than it should have been at that moment. It's like,
yeah.
No, and then it was like after that, then nobody. It was. I think we all thought it'd be like, oh, in a month or two, we'll be back to normal.
Well, you know, it's interesting with all of these ones because it's a pretty serial show. They were all building to big showdowns and, you know, had these big tapestries in them. But there was also, they wanted to have the dark moments to be pretty dark. They wanted that the depths you kind of get to when you do a film project, like Trek film projects, that, you know, sort of that level of gravity. And that kind of hits different when, you know, when you feel more troubled. So that'll be interesting to go back and watch all of these in, you know, years to come when we're hopefully continue to disassociate ourselves and disentangle from the pandemic.
Well, let's talk about Picard season 3 instead of COVID. The story that they told in that season that we all seem to like. I'm curious, like, what were the themes and messages? If we were gonna do like the mission log thing, like what they do on that show, where Norm and John they like to look at the morals, messages, and meanings of an episode. Like, what if we tried to like unpack like a whole season, like, because that is what the serialized TV does, is tell like a story over 10 weeks, 10 episodes.
Sure. Okay. Well, there's a bunch of stuff about family in there. There's a lot.
That's what I was like, family or like
more specific.
Family?
It's like about like legacy, right? It's about like it's about generations. It's a generational thing.
It's not listening to Patrick Stewart's writing. No.
And there's both the kind of dark generational stuff with like Vatic having been tormented by the
by Section 31, yeah.
Section 31.
Yeah.
And then there's the complicated but broadly more positive stuff, of course, with Picard and family. Yeah, I don't know, like you know, Father, you know, you were saying early on that it seemed like it was like thematically it felt like it was saying you inherit the good and the bad and sort of have to roll, you know, like make your peace in some way, process both of those things.
Yeah.
That seems to be for sure, like Picard and Jack, that's central to that.
I was thinking family also, in that I think it's about community, and that like you kind of have to find your people. And I think every Star Trek is about that a little bit with Starfleet, but especially at the end, like with the TNG people specifically, like coming together. Or you have like Shaw like looking out for the people under his command, and now I'm losing my train of thought.
Well, you know, it's interesting though, because Picard did make the point that he felt like he had made a family out of Starfleet, and you know, at least at one point in his life, he I guess he would assess it now as sort of a little bit of self-denial, that was enough for him. Only it wasn't enough.
At the time, it probably was.
That's true.
The thing. Things can change. I think that's what sometimes they didn't seem to like people aren't the same all the way through, and they kind of they say that, but then they have the expectation that, oh, he should have known this all along. Sometimes you don't, and sometimes it changes.
Yeah,
right.
And I was like, because it's you need different things in different parts of your life.
Right.
I was so worried going into the show because I
Joel's comment.
Joel and our live
Weird
audience
holidays
says,
are a security risk. That's the real message.
Does he say weird holidays are a security risk? The real message. Oh yeah, Frontier Day. Don't trust Frontier Day. I mean, the
First
Borg have
Contact
now
Day.
ruined First Contact Day and Frontier Day. So if you're a Star Trek holiday in April, they're coming for you.
I will say
they've already came after both of them.
Oh wow!
They
yeah, right.
they went after the real First Contact. They didn't even go after the holiday.
Yeah,
no,
they
that was
tried.
The
That would
Romulan.
be like
the holiday. They
like
tried
if
to
the
make sure it
Grinch
didn't ever happen.
Yeah, that would be like if the Grinch, like if the Grinch's plan to steal Christmas was like, I'm not fucking around with y'all's gifts under the tree. I'm gonna go back in time and kill baby Jesus.
You know, Father, eventually the Grinch will fall into public domain, and
we will tell that story.
Keep that packed away.
Oh, I wish. That's gonna sound bait. I was like, I wish Dr. Seuss had been dead long enough.
That's
what
hardcore.
Did he ever do to you?
Maybe you can go back in time and kill him sooner.
Rachel was the one pushing for Dr. Seuss to be canceled in school libraries.
I forgot that was even a thing.
That was a thing, yeah.
No, I just want you to. I want someone to write this story about him, the Grinch stealing baby Jesus.
But for me, going into Picard season 3, I was so worried, as people probably remember, about Picard and Beverly having a secret love child. I thought it was going to be like so derivative of David Marcus.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And when I saw the story that they told, though, it actually made a lot of sense to me, and I have to admit I'm gonna have to eat crow because it actually made so much sense for that to be the conclusion of Picard's 35-year story. The guy who, as Dave pointed out in the first episode of the show, that he's his introduction, he's like, I hate kids. Why are there these kids around? And and we find out like, oh yeah, it turns out like actually when he was, even though he met him as like an adult, but when he comes face to face with his offspring, that was like the thing. That was the thing missing from his life, and just like that journey made so much sense.
You can find the journey happening along there, including his bonding with Renee,
then losing Renee, then
and even with softening with Wes over the years, and lots of other stuff. Arguably, part of that journey was in Picard season 1, taking in who's the Romulan swordmaster?
Elnor.
Taking in Elnor.
Yeah,
that's another part of that journey.
That's so sad. Like when Elnor, remember when like Elnor's like a little kid and like John Luke is like reading the Three Musketeers to him out of the book, and like that, like Jack would have been like around like the same age. So like Picard's like being like a dad to Elnor, not knowing that there is this other child light years away, missing out on like those dad moments.
I have a question backing up really quickly to the David Marcus thing. We as like Super Trek fans know all of these beats and stuff. And for us, it's like, oh, wow, that story was really interesting because we expected it to be this and it was that. What is this like for people who aren't that deep into it? Is it going to be, I'm wondering if their story is like, oh, that's kind of like,
no, because obviously Wrath of Khan is very popular.
Right.
I don't know if people who are really into TNG necessarily it's like me, like genuinely, I don't know.
Yeah. Because it's
like
sort of
someone,
like, it works really well for us. And
I'm training someone at work right now, and somehow it came up that, oh, Rachel really likes Star Trek. And she was like, oh, what do you think of the new one? I was like, do you mean Picard? I was just like, because there's like 5 new. And she was like, she put it as the one has, she was like, I know LeVar Burton came back for one. It's how like she put it to me. And I was like, okay, we mean Picard. And then we were talking about it. But I was like, the way it was just like, she knows it from LeVar Burton, not from like, she didn't say Geordi. Like,
yeah.
Even like last year at the we knew that or I guess it was the first season, Jerry Ryan was going to be on the show. I found out because one of the people at our theater like worked at a company where they do the scanning of like their technology and everything for the I guess 3D models and molds probably and stuff, and just like, hey, it's that guy who has like the powers in the wheelchair, came in today. I'm like, what are you talking about? Like, it took me a second to be like, oh, Dr. Xavier. Oh, are you talking about Patrick Stewart? It's like, yeah. It's for some new show that they're doing. I'm like, oh yeah, I know. It's, Star Trek Picard. Yeah, and then the somebody came in, Jerry Taylor. I'm like, huh? It's like Jerry Ryan. That's it. I'm like, oh, that's interesting. This is like 4 or 5 weeks before it was announced. I'm like, thank you for you shouldn't be telling me that, but okay.
Oh, Era, that's funny. I remember seeing on social media you commenting somewhere like like I knew Jerry Ryan was going to be in the show. Like I couldn't say anything, but now
I
I
have
can.
definitely not about Star Trek,
and
but
it was
have
not
had
because I was like
information that I was like, I wish I didn't have this information because I can't tell anybody.
Yeah, that'd be painful.
Well, there were some things in the season though that I think didn't work as well as others. I was kind of half watching it on rewatch over the last week while I was building some models and stuff like that. And there's a lot of things that kind of work differently with the context of like the full ending. Like now, every time I see Worf doing cool stuff with his Kurleth sword, I'm like, that thing is like really freaking heavy, and I didn't know that before when I watched.
Yeah,
so
and it has a
cool.
phaser.
But speaking of that, like one of my issues was like, I kind of felt like Worf and Raffi, they stuck around on Metalis Prime too long. I mentioned that, like, I don't know if we needed them to encounter two crime lords and have kind of like the exact
That's
same
a general comment about the whole show. Everything was like, oh, okay, that could have come like a episode early, and I think they could have put some of that more into like revealing Jack's backstory or giving Beverly and Picard more time to talk, but they kind of drug out the secret, which everybody had already known, a little longer than it really needed to be.
I'm wondering if like maybe they just didn't have all the TNG actors for as many episodes, so they like we kind of want to wait till we have all of them to like the last 3 episodes.
It's crazy also like how who got the bigger parts and who didn't. Like going into it, I obviously Picard is going to be the main character of the show. And then I had been told that both Jonathan Frakes and Gates McFadden would appear in all 10 episodes. And I didn't know, what everyone else would be, but people were saying like not everyone is in every episode. But Worf's actually a lot. Worf is in the second, because I mean like Picard and Crusher are in all 10. Riker is in 9, and then the one episode he's not in, you do see a changeling pretend to be him briefly. And then Worf is in 8 of the 10 episodes, so they got a lot of Worf in there.
Well, I was going to mention
Star Trek in general.
There is something that that's true. There is something that those scenes with Raffi and Worf provided, which is it's clear that the writers wanted to have them establish something more than just a not more than a professional relationship, but a deep professional relationship and a more familial one. And so they needed them to do some more mission stuff. Honestly, it could have been really anything. And I think it just might have, the producers or the writers might have been better to just not have it, be 2 crime lords in a row, but some other kind of cool underworld scouring, a break into some place,
I do think it should have like maybe not been a second time crime lord, but I do know it's funny as you say this. I don't agree with this. I know some people from the first 2 seasons were not the biggest fan of Raffi, so I'm wondering if they wanted to like give her like these good moments with Worf to like kind of like build her character back up for those people.
Sure. I remember an issue of X-Men when Grant Morrison came on board the series. And in a way, to I think bolster Cyclops, who
You're talking about comics, by the way.
Yes. Cyclops has always been a somewhat love-hate character for with a lot of people just finding him a stick in the mud. But in the comic, Wolverine's narration is that he is that, but he's also the best person to have at your side in a fight. You'd never want anybody more than him. And Worf kind of did that for Raffi. Which when you get Worf's approval, you become like a more solidified as like a core Star Trek character. Because she was, am I correct? Other than Jack, the only other sort of I mean, I guess there's Geordie's daughters and stuff, but there's not too many people outside of the core cast.
He's the only regular from seasons 1 and 2.
Right.
Seven was a regular in season 2.
Yeah.
But she had
But-
been established. But she
But,
was.
like-
She's also not part of the. Yeah, she's not part of Next Gen.
Yeah. I would say the only one to stick around from seasons 1 and 2 that wasn't a like legacy character.
Yes.
And the thing with although they teased it at the beginning, they teased that she had fallen like back into addiction briefly, and I think that that lets us, even people who hadn't watched seasons 1 and 2 know, okay, that's in her history. But then they kind of dropped that, so this definitely was and they really already dropped that as of season 2. She certainly seemed like more like she had come into her own, back into her own.
See, I always took that because I think they were like advertising season 3 as you can just watch this. You don't have to watch the other 2 seasons. They're like, hey, that's enough for you to get that Raffi has a kind of like darkish backstory. Continue knowing that information.
I had a friend who messaged me the other day, and he's like, I want to watch Picard season 3. I'm hearing good stuff about it. He's like, but I watched the first season, and it left such a sour taste in my mouth, and I never watched the second one. I'm like, do I have to watch the second one? And I was like, nah, man, you can probably just jump ahead. And
you'll figure it out.
Q's dead, and Picard has a Romulan girlfriend.
I did give him that, like the very key the bullet points to know. So
those are the only 2 things you need to know about season 2, right?
You know what I did mention though, and because a part of it was, I think that this is kind of a good tapestry to know, is that Picard had processed a lot of like sort of trauma with his father, and I didn't want to like tell him too much, so I didn't say but I did say he felt like we sort of find out that maybe that's why he had always been so resistant to family and relationships. And I mentioned that he had connected with Laris by the end, which of course would kind of go by the wayside in this. But I did want to indicate they had set up some groundwork for it without actually telling him what was going to happen.
We have a super chat from the live audience, Matthew Averett, one of our Patreon supporters. Thank you so much, Matthew, who is saying the last season of Picard was my favorite of the 3. I think that's the general consensus, at least among the 4 of us. And I haven't seen anything to the contrary yet. If you
I think season 1 probably was I think season 1 was kind of like, it was a well-constructed story. It was just a story I just didn't care for. Season 2, I liked a lot of elements in it, but it was like a first draft.
Constructed.
And it needed to be like, okay, this should be moved here, and this guy definitely shouldn't be an FBI agent.
I heard the idea that maybe they had to rewrite it at the last second, and I was like, actually, from what I watched.
Yeah, season 1 had the stronger execution, the weaker concept. Season 2 was a stronger concept, a weaker execution. Season 3, I'd say it had a decent concept and a brilliant execution.
Yeah.
Are there any of those that any of y'all?
Nostalgia 11.
Oh yeah. Are there any of those that any of y'all would like say don't expect to go back to, or not only in a like if you have to?
No, I'll never not rewatch Star Trek. I've seen every episode of Star Trek, including all of Picard season 3 at least 4 times. I
will say I probably will end up, and it's just the nature of the type of show it is, and that I probably go back and will watch random episodes of a serialized show more than I will go back and watch an episodic show. Sorry, and then more than if I'm gonna go watch a serialized show, I'll probably just watch it as opposed
to
you
kind of have to do the commitment thing if it's serial.
And watch my favorite episodes of like TNG or Deep Space Nine or Voyager way more, and that I don't feel the need to go watch everything.
I'm weird in that like I feel like that's cheating to like only watch my favorite. So I always feel like I have to watch like the whole show, and then I feel like rewarded when I get to the ones I really like.
I have no idea if I have a list I give to friends specifically of TNG of here's the episodes you can skip. Look, if I want them to actually watch Star Trek, I can't make them watch every episode of season 1 and 2 of TNG. They don't need to watch Code of Honor.
That's part of Star Trek is that like there's no good like entry point. Except I think Strange New World season 1 has ruined that. I think anyone, it doesn't matter who you
be the like
watch Strange New World season 1.
Well, here's the thing where I was, and so all of them have reasons. Sometimes I'll just say like this episode's just kind of boring, but it like if you want to, it's fine. Code of Honor has like this episode is accidentally racist, like that's why.
Yeah, the first 4 episodes of TNG, you're not getting off on a good foot.
They're wild. I don't hate the Naked Now. It's weird. It's the 3rd episode.
Yeah.
Like,
It is kind of weird to jump right in.
like
Our
Father,
improv show had the same thing. We're like, wait, how did we end up with the Naked Now on our second show as well? They're like, this is like really weird. Nobody knows our characters. We don't know our characters.
yeah, exactly. They just really, really wanted to establish that Data can get it on.
I mean, theoretically, Naked Now could have been like used to like showcase by seeing everybody turned up to 11. That you could have seen that, but instead of that, it was kind of just like
Roddenberry's thinking. That was like if we show everyone acting how they're not like if we show everyone being atypical, then audiences will know what their typical character.
But it's not like the virus didn't quite happen that way. It was just more like people got kind of super intoxicated.
Right, but because Gene Roddenberry is also like super horny and was like, oh, what if we just made them all just like they just want to bang each other? And
also
it's important. It was like important to him that the audience knew that the robot could still have sex. Like to him, he thought that would be like a pressing question in the minds of everyone.
I feel bad because it's pretty much impossible for Tasha to get mentioned in any message board thread nowadays without that being like people acting like that's her defining characteristic.
I will say, as in Gene Roddenberry's defense of him assuming everyone would want to know that, he did invent Kirk and Spock, which in a way like invented modern fan fiction. So
we're gonna give him a small pass.
Not wrong. It would come up a lot if he had it just been like, yes, have fun.
Father, do we want to mention some of those things that people were broadly like outside of us maybe more, but like critical of season 3 of Picard with like the the question of this sort of generational conflict?
Why do we have to go outside of ourselves? I have some complaints I want to bring
up.
Well,
we brought it up, but like I had a friend, we have a mutual friend who she found it like it damned the series to that the Borg were like, took over the younger generation. She felt like it was a thematic that was saying that it's got to be the time for the boomers to come in and like show the kids how it's done. They're so easily misled. That was a reading that some people have taken. And
the Borg are a Rorschach test because there's so many like, oh, can you believe it was like it's saying that gay people are bad? I'm like, what? Where is that coming from? Just like there's
I haven't heard that one.
That was my immediate reaction to it though, was like it did kind of bother me that it was like saying that like the children it up. Like I wish there was another reason like why our heroes were I wish there was something else that like explained why our heroes were immune to the
they gave a reasonable sci-fi. They gave a reasonable sci-fi explanation,
right? But the optics on it are not good.
Yes, I agree. I agree with that.
I had interpreted. I do understand that interpretation. I understand they got there. The way I interpreted it is I kind of thought it was like showing the Borg's hubris, where they'd assume that like the older bodies aren't useful to them because they're not perfect.
Right.
The Borg are ageist.
Yeah, I mean, to be fair, that tracked with everything I'd ever heard about the Borg.
Well, they're kind of
just worried about perfection and not like
right. They're kind of eugenics-y in that sense of they just they cut off. They don't use anything that. If it's not useful to them, they wouldn't use it.
They wouldn't assimilate the Kazon because they're like, no, y'all are too basic. Like we don't even want you.
Thinking about the
that was the funniest line to me, but they were like, we didn't need that. Like
poor Kazon. I can't remember if we've talked about this. I wonder if the Kazon know that. That would be tough to live with.
They're like knowing. That's why they hijack the Borg transwarp corridors, and we see them, traveling all around in Prodigy.
Yeah, they'd be like the perfect infiltrators. Like, yeah, they don't want them at all.
No one ever suspects the Spanish Inquisition or the Kazon.
I was thinking about the generational critique the other day, and I think it does like it amounts to. I think it was mainly a slightly clumsy plot point, just to make sure that our kind of old school heroes got to ride ride in as a cavalry. But I was trying to figure like, okay, if I'm looking for that thematic, then in general the younger characters should be shown throughout the whole thing, maybe to kind of be lacking in some ways or directionless. And Jack is arguably that, but Jack is I feel like Jack was a very well liked character.
Mhm.
I
I also think they did a good job with like both of Geordi's daughters, all of the other ensigns to be like, no, these people are very competent.
And they do bring that in though a little bit with Shaw, because he's the only one from the old engineering crew that understood how to fix that one, open up the nacelle caps or whatever the hell it was they were doing to charge the ship and fly out of the
See,
nebula.
no, I think
But wait, is that
It
an argument
wasn't-
that like he's the only guy who can drive a stick?
Yeah,
Basically?
kinda.
it wasn't.
Kind
but
of.
yeah, but I mean, just
wasn't
it's
the
that
only
age thing
one
as well.
on the ship that could do it. All of the other engineers were busy fixing the other stuff,
I thought they said that
and then he was saying
was the one
everyone
they
else
knew.
wasn't an engineer, and so they didn't know how to do it.
That is what they said. But there's a line that said all the engineering crew is busy and no one else.
Oh, okay.
None of these other kids know how to work these.
So I think it was all of the engineer kids could have done it.
Yeah.
But the ship was so broken.
I'm just saying
we
it's
can't let
that
them
level-
go do it.
Right. I mean, but that's still there in like
Yeah.
it thematically is part of that.
Yeah.
I think.
But
there
'cause
may be a little bit of kind of boomer or just older generation back padding a little going on.
I know
Mhm.
I've seen fans cling on to that.
Yeah.
That was something that I ran into the other day, where someone was pointing out like, well, this show was made for the boomers and Generation X, so you shouldn't look at it from like a millennial perspective or a Gen Z perspective. I did see someone say that the other
That's
day.
interesting. I don't know if it's the worst
okay.
thing in
No
the
thanks.
world to like as something, as a partial thematic at least, to say, hey, old folks can still do some shit. Like
Mhm.
if you if
It's
you're not
the
doing it
And
That's
to be,
true.
at the
to be
expense
fair,
of
the show has shown how like Picard has kind of in
Yeah.
his old age
I
become
think-
like
He
less
was a little
important.
daughter forgetting star bases and stuff.
Yeah,
like
I
that.
think I would have had more of a problem if they hadn't already established that, like, if Picard was always the only one who could fix stuff with that
Yeah.
ending.
Well, let's talk about another problem with the show, or at least it was a huge problem for me. Like there is a reason why, as much as I've really enjoyed Star Trek Picard, I can't say that I like it as much as Prodigy, Lower Decks, or Strange New Worlds, and that is I really hate. And I don't like to use that word often. I don't like to say like I hate something. I try to always say like I dislike or I'm bothered by. But like no, I flat out hate that Section 31 is canonically a critical part of Starfleet security.
Yeah.
that Picard doesn't know about either. Which, by the way, bit of a strike against the old folks know
But Riker
everything.
does.
Why does Picard not know about Section 31?
Yeah,
Well,
that
when
makes no
Vadic
sense.
tells him, he's like, I didn't know.
Maybe he didn't
Yeah, I
know
don't-
that
He said
it
those
was
I don't
words.
think
torture,
he.
not-
I don't think he knew that they were. Yeah, that they were
Experimenting.
experimenting.
Yeah.
with
Okay,
things.
well,
I think
so
he knows
all
it.
right.
I keep hoping they'll establish Section 31 to be closer to what it is with Deep Space Nine.
Yes, I hope that they fix Section 31. I don't know if
Yeah.
they will. I know that was originally the plan. I know that when Bowie, Kim, and Erica Lapolte were going to be showrunners on the Section 31 show, I know that was
Mhm.
their intention, was that they were going to show Section 31 ultimately becoming villains and being the bad guys. I don't know if they're going to do that with, they're calling this new movie, it's a mix between Guardians of the Galaxy and Mission Impossible. So I don't think I'm going to get that. At least like I'm not
Guardians of the
expecting it.
Impossible. Mission Galaxy.
You're talking about the Section
I-
31 movie, Fathery?
Yeah.
And I
What do you?
was
What do
the
you?
scope of like a movie is going to have to be different than a show in
Yeah.
general.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Sure.
so I think that they're just going to say like, oh, Section 31, it's a critical part of Starfleet, and here's your fun adventure that Michelle Yeoh is going to go on and beat people up.
See, I just feel like I'm going to go with that with the I like Michelle Yeoh. That's the energy I'm going in with, and I'll probably be pleased.
Fathery, haven't they, when they were talking about it when it was considered more likely to be a series, didn't they say, wasn't there some stuff that we took as like more encouraging?
No,
like,
that's what I was just saying. When Erica and Bowie were in charge of it, it was.
that's okay. Gotcha.
Yeah.
But they're gone. It's going to be a different. It's going to be very different from whatever it was. So
Yeah.
I'm
'Cause
nervous.
I had
again.
actually said that to them. I was just sort of like, most people really hate Section 31 in Star Trek. I was like, because I talked with her a lot, and she was like at our improv thing. So we just sat down, and she's like, "We're gonna fix that." Like they never told me details, but yeah, that was sort of.
And then they're like, They had conversation. They had at least one conversation with Ira Stephen Bear that on the cruise he was talking about that was their plan was they were going to turn they were going to show how Section 31 kind of started off as like good intentions and as good guys, but then they become it kind of gets out of hand. And I think that's actually like a very topical. I think that's. I know some people might get weirded out by this, but I think that's a legitimate concern of like the security state that we live in, especially like in the post 9/11 world, but kind of, always from the very beginning. It's, that's like a question that they were actually trying to address in DS9 with Section 31 was that whole debate of security versus freedom. And, like, do you want to feel protected? Do you want like a big brother looking out for you? Even if that means like he's going to be spying on you. Like, what does that mean? And yeah, that was something that I think that show would have addressed if they made it. I don't know what the movie will have time to get to. I'm not expecting that anymore. I would love to see something like that, but that's
Section
no longer
31 goes really well with the Kelvin universe because they talking about security. It's like they had video of every single corner of everything in that world. It was just sort of like, oh wow, that's disturbing.
You know what's interesting? I think we probably talked about this, Father, when we were talking Deep Space Nine retrospective. Is that Cisco, you might argue, is the most morally compromised captain, maybe. I know it's debatable, but like he did some stuff.
Yeah, I don't like that framing, but you might be right.
let's proceed with it just for this conjecture, though. He wanted Bashir to infiltrate Section 31 to bring it down, right?
Yeah, the guy, in the pale moonlight guy was like, no, fuck this. Like, we can't have Section 31. Like,
looked at that and was like, hell no.
Yep. So I really hope that, that they look back to, honestly, the best Section 31 stories and see, that was key to it.
Yeah.
This is a place where the action movie sensibilities, the Picard season 3 as Trek movies, number 10, has a sort of downside because when you kind of frame things in an action movie perspective, then it's easy to get to thing like Section 31 is just a cool badass spy agency.
That's my fear going into the movie, and that's like I kind of struggle with things like that in other aspects of pop culture. Like I don't like. I don't know. I don't like things that kind of like glorify, like government agencies and stuff like that. Like I'll never enjoy the X-Files again because as an adult, I don't trust the FBI and I have a hard time rooting for them if I'm watching a show. So
and conspiracy theory isn't as fun as it seemed in the 90s.
Yeah, no, like Fox Mulder would be like he would be like a 9/11 was an inside job. Like he would have been trying to like storm the Capitol on January.
Oh God, you'd have to be like, where were you January 6th? That's the most important question I have to ask.
They'd be trying to get Scully to buy InfoWars products.
Yeah. Yeah. So, it's,
by the way, in the audience, Joel, I love this. He says his suggestion is Garrick appears. I can help with that Section 31 problem. I love it.
Technically, we don't know when this movie is taking place. We don't know where she went.
Yeah.
That's a fun theory that I saw some people speculate. Is other people concerned about Section 31 is like, I don't think this is going to be the movie because this does not sound like Mission Impossible meets Guardians of the Galaxy. But how fun would it be? Those of us who kind of don't like Section 31, how fun would it be if Michelle Yeoh shows up in the 25th century post-Picard season 3 and is like, you know what, I'm gonna go take down Section 31. And what if like Garrick like pops in to like help her out with that? Like, wouldn't that be cool?
Would love that, and I do not think it's gonna happen.
No, I don't think it'll happen either.
Well, I'll tell you, when you look at like say Marvel superhero movies, like they kind of try and do something different with each of them. There's a recognition that if you repeat yourself too much, it's kind of lame looking. Well, there's like so many spy movies, but there's not a whole lot of spy movies where somebody kind of maybe early on in it comes to the conclusion they're on the wrong side and works with somebody who might show up. Like she could be fighting Garrick in a cool cold open, right? That'd be great.
If she was fighting Garrick, like considering how old Andy Robinson is now, like I think like Andy Robinson in his prime, or like I don't know what I'm saying. Garrick in his prime would just get slaughtered by George.
Okay, I'm not talking about a literal physical fight. I mean, she's up against him. His forces, he's maybe looking to bring down Section 31. I'm not talking talking about a punch up in a boxing ring.
I
assume
and I've
Philippa
not
isn't
watched
really
all
like
of
the
this
best,
show, but have any of you watched
judge
Alias?
of character either.
True.
Have any of you ever watched the show Alias?
Right.
Yes.
That is the premise of Alias.
Yep.
That's
SD6 or whatever.
Double
was
agents,
really
Dave-
triple agents, quadruple
Dave
agents.
had you'd suggested that previously.
Yeah. It's just that, like,
Red
now
Matter.
they've got a movie. In a show, you could have 2 or 3 episodes where she's just doing Section 31 shit.
Yeah.
Not quite really, maybe catching bits and pieces of the skeeviness, but then,
What-
like, a little ways in, okay, in a movie, you're going to have a lot less time to do that, so it's going to have to occur in
Also, I
20,
kind of
30
wonder-
minutes.
I have this is not coming if there was anywhere for proof. Maybe this is going to be like the first in a series of Section 31 movies. Where this
I was
one
about
would
to say that. Yeah, that
this
would
one would
be.
be we're doing cool spy stuff, and near the end she's like, "Oh no, I'm on the wrong side." And then the second movie would be
If the movie
guess,
is left,
yeah.
if it's left open ended to a sequel, that will actually make me much more optimistic that I might get my oh no, the Section 31 were the bad guys all along type story.
Because like I could see Michelle Yeoh having more time to come in every couple years and film a movie, and then go do whatever else she's working on than like the commitment to a show.
And I don't want to spend too much time, speculating on what we hope will come next. I was kind of hoping we'd have like some time at the end of the show to go into that, but I would say that I keep bringing it up. We're getting close to the 1000th episode of Star Trek. They need to do something big. Alex Kurtzman seems to have some type of plan. They're calling it like Phase 2. Like, are we Marvel now? Are we doing like the Phase 1, Phase 2, whatever? But part of this Phase 2, like, it's funny, the Star Trek Phase 2 was like an attempted show in the 70s, but the Phase 2 we're getting into now is going to involve like these standalone movies that happen from time to time, and so I think that kind of sounds like they want to build up to something.
Yeah,
I think if they build up to like the 1000th episode, if they need like a big bad guy for that, I think what would be a more appropriate Star Trek story than do like the self-reflection thing and be like, oh no, maybe like the Federation and humanity needs to take a look at itself. And the Section 31 thing is a problem. It represents our bad side, our dark side. We need to address it and deal with like this internal issue. I think that would be potentially a great way to celebrate.
If they're doing that,
1,000 episodes.
They need to start building up the guy who's going to be the face of Section 31. Guy or gal or whoever it would be. Like, I think a villain to sort of ultimately to have probably somebody kind of complex, so you can have a little bit of that what is it, Few Good Men, Colonel Jessup kind of stuff. Every Section 31 story is some version of, what are we willing to trade for liberty.
Interesting. I have some ideas on who that might be, but I think I should save those for another day, because I think that could be a really
like a
fun,
previously
juicy
established character.
Yeah.
Interesting. Yeah. Okay.
That's what I was thinking, like a brand new one. That's why I'm fascinated.
Well, let me ask y'all. Let's talk about like possibilities, what might come next in just a moment. Before we get into that, I just want to talk about like how Picard's season 3 or Picard as a show, like where it ended with like these. With like the characters, so like the main characters, let's just like go through them. Like with Picard, the ending we get with him, he's kind of like rediscovered his role, and he's kind of like come out of retirement. Not so much he's come out of retirement, but I think like he's kind of found like comfort in retirement. Like he can still be involved in society, but he no longer has to be like the dude in the center seat.
He's
on the
come
bridge.
out of being a recluse.
Yeah.
And all the people who got those, all the people got those wine bottles are like, thank God.
Yeah,
maybe he'll stop making wine because it's so terrible.
Someone give it back to whoever was making it before.
I know. I think it was his brother. I think that's the problem.
Oh, I feel like, but there's somebody between his brother and him. He didn't immediately take over the vineyard.
There's someone else who died in the middle. There's been multiple fires in that house.
maybe it took a while to get that wine operation going back.
Yeah,
after that fire.
That could be true.
Maybe it was changelings. That's why the wine tasted horrible.
Oh, we can't.
Just their evil no
sabotaging his. Yeah.
No, they just can't taste anything. They didn't know.
Oh, that's
There
true.
you
go. So, Father, are you talking about the status quo where we end up with, which you might have to remind me on some of the characters exactly where they ended up, but like, do we think like Picard is he like being active in Starfleet where he's going to be? Does he have a ship?
I don't think so.
Nothing I saw seemed to suggest that or hint at that.
Hang out in Starbase.
But
one.
Yeah.
I think he's still a retired admiral. He's just like
Okay,
I would
but he might be
imagine-
more actively involved in.
Yeah.
he gives speeches
Yeah.
on Frontier Day, and like he drives his
Yeah.
son to
Not
work
anymore.
on his first day of work. And
I would like to see, if he shows up in future projects, and I don't know that I need a Picard season 4, but like I would, if he guested, that would be great. And to have him, like play some sort of active role as the kind of, benevolent godfather to our future generations.
If I like, it would like be the perfect. If I thought this Academy show was set during this time period for him to like show up on that.
Yeah.
I still say they have holodecks, and he still can.
yeah, he can
But-
show up as a hologram, but
Yeah.
he that won't happen because he's too expensive of a cameo. So
That's true.
Yeah.
Only
It'll
Marvel
be
can have him
holograph
show
of,
up
like,
for a
some
second.
random-
Like,
well, we have Admiral Picard. We also have
It'll be-
Admiral.
Harry Kim.
We also have Admiral Crusher, who is active in Starfleet. So
This
that's
is
kind of
true.
the conclusion they give to her. Like she's a
Yeah.
a mother again.
You know what I would hope
And-
is that if we get around to our legacy show, I would like for her to, if they can make this happen, to play a major supporting role, maybe even if she's not on the ship. That there's a storyline that involves Starfleet Medical in some way. That
You'd
could
rather see,
actively involve
but
her.
don't you think it'd be cool if like instead they use like Dr. Bashir or the Doctor from Voyager?
I would say,
Man,
like,
she's
okay.
like riding high right
Doctor
now.
Voyager should be in command of something.
That
I
would
like
be
both
cool.
both of those doctors are better
Obviously-
doctors than Crusher. Like
Okay,
one-
obviously, I want Dr. Bashir to show up. However, if Jack is on the Legacy show, it makes sense for him to call Beverly.
Yeah,
Yeah.
well, actually, that would be something
I
of
want-
a worry that I would have. Is like I don't want to quite feel like he's like calling in his mom for backup. But if it's just something that she's involved in, that's an interesting
It
dynamic.
would also make sense if he just happened to be calling his mother, like, and then
Yeah.
something came up, and he was like, "Hey, a medical thing came up. Can I ask you about this?"
Right, she can advise.
Yeah.
But Father, this is sort of more meta than it is in fiction, in universe thing. I'm like, people responded well to seeing these characters again. Frankly, they are probably much cheaper than Patrick Stewart. And I think
Yes.
that they could
So would
that
Robert
energy-
Picardo and Alexander Siddig would also both be cheaper than Stewart.
This is
and-
right,
true.
but they did not just have a hugely successful, massively successful series.
Okay.
So
well, luckily,
I would've seen with
I don't know.
Beverly, and all of a sudden Wesley shows up and it's like, "Hey, how's it going? What's going on?" And just like glaring at the screen, and then it cuts.
God, for some reason that just reminded me of James his name was James something. The actor who played Picard's father is known for
Oh.
people think he looks like a lot like
James
Alexander.
Callis,
Yes, people think he looks like a lot like Alexander.
yeah,
Siddig.
most well known
Yeah.
for his role as
Oh yeah.
Gaius Baltar in
Like
Battlestar
they have a
Galactica.
similar vibe, but enough
Sure.
that I saw someone got confused why Bashir was in season 2 of Picard. And
That
I
was
had to
Dave.
expl-
Dave was confused by that.
Oh no.
what was it? Was it when he first showed up? Was that the thing?
Yeah, you thought that Picard was like talking to like this therapist doctor or something, and you were like, "Why is that
Oh,
Bashir?"
yeah, he does have that sort of that. I can
Yeah,
see
it's
that.
like he is like the weird dream before you realize. But I had a friend who did text me and then immediately it was like, "Oh wait, no, that's the dude from Battlestar."
That was
Yeah.
like Tex-Trek number 180
Yeah.
something. I don't know. People can go find it.
I'm
I
sure
think.
I must have for like half a second
No.
done the same
Yeah.
thing just because he
Two-
does. have
See,
that
Joel's
vibe.
one.
Was Bashir too.
So do y'all? What would y'all want to see done with like like if anything immediately with the classic TNG
I-
cast, or would
I
you
wanna-
prefer it be just the legacy ship, Seventh ship?
I want to have a museum show where we watch Geordi curating ships. And
Actually, that
You
sounds
could do
fun.
something with it. There could be something.
I
Night at the Starfleet
I don't
Museum.
know how well this would work in like the Star Trek Legacy show that seems to be like they want to make. I want to see more of like Data, like this new Data.
Yes,
I
actually
have,
like
my
this
shirt-
Data. And
Yeah, my
Patrick
shirt
Stewart.
has Jordy and Data's like exchange on it. Like I Like, I've always loved Data, but like this new aspect of him, I'm like, oh, we're just scratching the surface of this, and I want more.
They one of the cool things they did in Picard season 3 is I felt like like everybody got their moment. Nobody kind of had. I think they were all pretty strong, varying degrees of strong. But
Yeah.
like, would I want to see more Riker and Troy? Yes. Would I want to see more Worf? For sure. More Data? Definitely. I think of the
I wanna see
highest of
Tex-Trek.
those for me would
Yeah, I would
be,
love to
by
see
the way.
Tex-Trek. I'm assuming they just didn't. What I've heard now of like the budget problems they were having of all the people they wanted,
Yeah.
I was like, oh, they couldn't get
Yeah.
her in.
You could
Okay.
mention her though. That would have been helpful.
Yeah, it's kind of a little weird. But
We were
I
too
know
busy
that
letting Baddock chew the scenery, so we had to lose that line.
they did seem to be minimizing things that weren't immediately, basically for the casuals, minimizing
Yeah,
in continuity stuff or
I get it.
anything much deeper than the surface. I don't know where Fathery has gone, if he is experiencing technical difficulty.
There was a storm at one point he was talking about.
I don't.
Yeah.
Fathery is way more north than I am, so maybe the storm's up there now. The storm seems to have pretty
No,
much
the
passed
storm's
me.
well past us all. And
Okay.
I'm norther than Fathery, and it's well
Okay.
well past. But anyway, well, that's all right. We can proceed a little bit. I probably I could pull up his outline even. But what do y'all do y'all have hopes for what do you call it, legacy to be a thing?
I hope it's not called Legacy, just so we can like the people who are like now. It's that yes, I would love this show. I'm excited about it, but the oh my god, cowards, come on, give us Legacy. Like those fans is just already starting to like just drive me bonkers.
I have still never
Call it
watched
something
it.
else.
I know I probably should because I've heard and I've still never gone back to the Orville because people fans of the Orville made me so mad during like when it and Discovery were like first airing.
There
Some
was
of,
a
and
little
I'm
bit
not
of
saying everyone. Some they were using the Orville as a like excuse to be racist about Discovery. Some people were.
Yeah,
And, like,
yeah.
No, thank you.
I'm to me. There's not too much in a name. I'm not, despite the ending of that thematic or whatever at the end of Picard season 3. Names are everything. But Legacy is fine with me. It's kind of generic. But it does.
It is a little generic.
As a direct follow up
Star
to
Trek Legacy sounds more like the name of a video game to me than like an actual show.
It was a video game.
Yeah.
Maybe that's why.
But it would have like it has Picard's son. It has 7 of 9 from Voyager. It has Raffi from Picard, and so there is. And do we have LaForge on there too?
She was on the bridge, so I would assume
she was on the
would
bridge.
texted me.
So it's not like I feel like it's somewhat reasonable to go with that, even though I don't love it. But would y'all, in other words, like that if whatever they call it, would you like that mix? Would you like to see it?
Yeah, I think so.
without
You know
Shaw?
what? Actually, one problem I had with like the third season is I didn't understand what was happening with Seven and Raffi. Like I was very confused by it, and I would hope
supposed to necessarily. It seems like
you're talking about their like kind of like their interaction on the bridge.
Yeah, I was like, what is the relationship? It's funny because maybe I made the assumption when she said my girlfriend broke up with me. I made the assumption that wasn't true, and it was part of the cover.
Yeah, that's what we thought, and then it seemed like, oh, maybe it is true because she doesn't want to hang out with her. Yeah,
but I would like to see them interact more and like see like what exactly is the status of that.
Yeah, I think it's an interesting opportunity to do it's something else they haven't done on Trek. It would be one of the things that would set the show apart immediately. Yeah, we've seen shows out doing stuff, but we haven't seen a close relationship between captain and first officer. Hey, Father, you made it back.
Here's a question. Not counting the show that they sort of set up, what would you like to see? Because that may or may not happen, but it's like what after this, basically thematically or just in general, what would you like to see?
See, the show idea, like this won't happen now because they're making the Academy show set in the future. That I've always thought an Academy show set in the 25th century. I also am excited about the Academy show set in the future. So because that would always been my thought, I'm having trouble coming up with like anything else.
One of the exciting things right now is not so much I'm sorry. I wanted to talk about like the endings of like the different characters before we get into like legacy speculation,
Nope,
but
sorry.
let's just.
Okay,
Well,
no problem.
we have.
Well,
I feel like we've
vanished,
all
so.
kind of everyone's heart seems to be into the legacy stuff. So the Picard people, they all lived happily ever after. That's
The end.
whatever. But yeah, with I think one of the
And then the
exciting
ship
things.
explodes as it goes off screen.
I think one of the exciting things about the post Picard world that we're entering now is not just maybe they'll make another show, maybe we'll have a third live action show again to join Strange New Worlds and Starfleet Academy. That
medical drama.
Well, I think most people were probably hoping for something like Legacy, but without that, like there's still like if we get like the third season of Prodigy, there's a lot of cool stuff they could pull from here.
Yeah.
And like, what if they meet
That's true.
Crusher in Prodigy, and she's got like this little kid named Jack, and he's like, oh, and, like little kid Jack, he's like, oh wow, like Dal and Jankum and Zero,
now
y'all
I
are
want
so
that.
cool.
That's the problem.
Yeah, he's like looking up to them and stuff.
Yeah, I'd be down for that.
Totally works.
The other side to that is if they do Star Trek Legacy, they could bring in some of the Prodigy characters as adults.
Oh yeah, that would be interesting.
That'd be
Although
cool.
it's a little difficult, I think, for the Prodigy showrunners and stuff because that means that they have to
Yeah,
fast
would have
track
to
the
know
fates of those characters, and they definitely are going to want the suspense.
Well, Prodigy ain't going to last forever. I mean, it might get a third season. It might not. I mean, I don't. By the time a Legacy
It
show
must be
is
more expensive to make than Lower Decks.
like if they
I think so with the animation style.
Yeah, if they fast tracked a Legacy show right now, the earliest we would ever see it would still probably be 2025.
Oh my god,
So,
if they can make it work, I'd be down to. I'd love to see some Prodigy characters show up on it.
There was someone on Twitter complaining about how long it took Strange New Worlds to get made. They're like, it took them 3 years. I was like, that's fast to make a TV show.
Yeah, it's like these shows are super expensive. A lot of people have to approve a lot of things. A lot of conversations have to happen. And I know like some people don't care about like the business side of it, and I get that. I mean, like I don't think that stuff's particularly interesting. I guess
I think to complain and tweet that you
it.
want to show, you have to take a media literacy class.
I mean, that's how it should be. But yeah, like if a lot of people like they don't like to listen to reality, but yeah, like it took a year before they announced Strange New Worlds. I would be utterly shocked if they even come close to confirming a Legacy show within this year. I think the soonest we might hear that would be like early next year.
I was like, do you understand? Like all of these people, like you have to find when all of these people can film at the same time, get them all to sign contracts, get like their agents to negotiate for them. Like this, it takes time, and like, I would rather them take time and like make a good show or like make sure all of the like actors are compensated like for like their work, but like
something will happen. They're gonna do something in the 25th century. I think the reaction to this has just been too positive. It's too big. The way Aaron described like the energy at these events, where a lot of like the decision makers are going to have some visibility on what the fandom
it's going to be
is
very
thinking.
telling that like people not in the world of Star Trek have been asking me particularly about this season of Picard. The show has been on for 2 years previously to this.
It might not be Terry's Legacy show. It might be something similar. It might be like different people running it, but it might be like these movies that Alex Kurtzman is wanting to do.
Yeah.
But something will happen. But
what some of that audio podcast they were going to do? That kind of never brought up again.
Yeah, the con thing.
Yeah.
Hey, Father, do you remember back when we did our I forget what we called it, but we did our pitches for hypothetical Trek shows? Just kind of sky's the limit.
The Tex-Trek Build a Trek challenge from 2020.
Mine was for a ship that was kind of operating as a sort of Doctors Without Borders thing, dealing with a specific thing that was on the edge of, I think, of Gorn territory, and if they could find some way that say what do you call it, Gates McFadden if she was interested in doing that, of doing like we already know that's in her history now, but she also has she's renewed her Starfleet ties. If they had her in a ship kind of out there in like kind of dangerous territory, so you get a lot of still higher Star Trek drama, but with some medical drama show stuff. That's just I'm just saying
I don't know if she'd want to be the lead of a show in her 70s, but Patrick Stewart was the lead of a show in his 80s, so who knows?
There's just a real quick aside about there's a weird horror movie aside. The Insidious series of movies has a character who's Lynn Shay is the actress. She's like a psychic type person, but she has been in like 5 of these movies now. She essentially became the star. She's a person who's like, deals, works with some ghost hunter type people, and she was in her 70s the whole time. And so it's one of the kind of cool things about the series, even though it veers in other places, she is the one constant in the series. Anyway, they did just give all of Picard in season 3 to a bunch of old folks, so I know it's not the most likely thing, but I'm just saying it's more likely than I would have guessed it would be. It seems like it could happen, something like that.
Some of the ideas that Terry was suggesting, though, because he never misses an opportunity to remind people, I really want to do Star Trek Legacy, and I have tons of ideas, and we're gonna bring back Shaw, and we're gonna do this. But some of the things he suggested was, like, what's going on with the Klingon Empire? What if we did like a story over there and saw what's happening with the Klingons? What about Deep Space Nine? What if we went to Deep Space? I would love to see the Enterprise G go to DS9. I would like
that would be really cool. I have more hope in that like Terry Matalas was like, oh, you have like actual episode ideas of like things like long-term fans would be interested in.
Yeah, and I think that is I think Legacy would. He wanted to rename Star Trek Picard to Star Trek Legacy for season 3. This is an example of like what I think it would be. This ship, the Titan, now the Enterprise G, with Seven and Jack and Sydney, doing telling stories that involve the legacy of Star. Basically, like the hangover of the 24th century being explored in the 25th century. So yeah, like maybe they go to the Klingon Empire and we see what Martok is doing. Maybe they go to DS9 and we see what's going on with DS9. Maybe
let's see I need to see what Bajor is up to, what the prophets are up to.
What's going on with Garrick? What's going on with Bashir? What they'll bring in more Voyager people. Show us Captain Harry Kim finally. Like I think that there's such a fertile ground there, and if it's not Terry Matalas and Star Trek Legacy, I think it will be something else. I'm pretty optimistic. We're going to get something. We'll probably see Borg Girardi again and find out what's going on with those Borg. It might be in 20 years. It might be a while. It took us a while to find out what happened to the Borg post Endgame, right? Like that was kind of a 20-year gap.
Okay, here's my thing. I want Data to meet his daughter. There we go.
That's another one that was on my list. Rachel was Data and Soji. That's a thing you can do.
Well, especially now knowing that, like, apparently that was a scene that was in a draft to be in Star Trek Picard, and they just didn't have the budget to bring the actress back. I was like, okay, so he does like have a ton of ideas and just wasn't able to do all of them because it costs money to have people in TV shows.
Yeah, and like how Data's ending, by the way, that was one that I did want to bring up earlier. It's just like I just love that the way that his story kind of concluded, even though I was not wanting him to be resurrected again, and I still kind of would have preferred if it was just Lore who had to be good and work with the good guys and not like a resurrected Data yet again. However, it is a pretty satisfying conclusion to his story arc that he did finally become mostly human, not quite. He wouldn't be Data if he was like all the way, if he was just like a normal dude, but mostly he's mostly there. He's mostly Pinocchio finally became a real boy, and he is his words to Troy when he's like laying on the therapy couch and he's saying, who would have thunk it? Being human is as difficult as aspiring to become human. I just think that's such a great ending to his arc.
That was.
I love that.
Some of the strong writing. There were like so many scenes like that where, like you were saying, Fathery, their execution would take an idea that might have been weak on the surface or and elevate it.
I think something about this season kind of proves that adage of like every story has been told. If you tell it well, though, it will feel good. Yeah. Like it will be good. Like sometimes tropes are good for a reason, and if you use them and you do them well. Hey, it's a good show.
I also hope that the powers that be with Star Trek and with Paramount Plus, I hope that they learn the right lessons from Picard. I hope that they realize like, oh, people actually like it when Klingons look like Klingons, or like when you have like the Mike Okuda style Elcars on displays and stuff like that. But they also realize that like, oh yeah, like we can't rely too much on like the old stuff. Like people really responded well to like Shaw and some of the new characters and stuff like. So we should keep pressing forward. Oh, I hope that they learn the right lessons from because it would be easy to walk away with the wrong lessons or the wrong conclusions.
Father, where'd you want Data or do you imagine Data showing up anywhere, or do you like that as a conclusion?
No, I actually think that it'd be great to see him and Soji. It's like I think like if they did Legacy, they could have Brent come in for an episode or two. If they needed his help with something, maybe they go to that world where the XBs are, where the cube crashed in season 1. Maybe like he's doing something there. Maybe like we see Soji there on her home world or something.
Is Soji still going around as an ambassador, being like androids are actually cool?
Yeah, I assume so. I mean, we would have the opportunity to find. Maybe we would learn that Elnor didn't really die on the Excelsior. Maybe he gets recruited by Philippa Georgiou to help take down Section 31. And we have like Georgiou, Garrick, and Elnor, and it's like
I like that.
Elnor would actually be really cool on that kind of.
That was in one of the Picard novels. I didn't read it, but apparently like Garrick meets Elnor in one of the Picard novels, and he's like so fascinated by like, oh my god, it's a Romulan who can't tell a lie. This is so cool. Like, he can only tell the truth.
That was really good. Yeah, that was.
Garrick is like the prince of lies. So for him to find someone who can only tell the truth must be interesting.
But also, like him taking down Section 31, which is all kind of lies and manipulation. He feels like the ultimate like sort of weapon against that for Elnor.
Yeah. I mean, there's like a lot of cool possibilities. So I'd be curious to hear like if other people have ideas. What are things that y'all would like to see? I mean, it's like Picard said in All Good Things. Like the last word spoken of the next generation. The sky's the limit, and that's how a lot of us, I guess, are feeling right now at the end of Star Trek Picard and the end of that TNG saga.
I'm excited that there's so much Star Trek that I don't have to actually think about what I want. Something will show up and I'll be surprised by it, which is so much better than like, okay, I'm guessed what it was and now I know about it and here's the production. And it's like just having so much stuff out there that it's like kind of can just jump out at you. It's like pretty cool.
Yeah, we're gonna get 10. I don't know what they're gonna be, but we're gonna get 10 really exciting live action Star Trek stories in a few weeks, with Strange New World season 2.
Oh, it's like 10 movies or 10 shows. And I'm like, what?
I don't think you say for a second. I was like, oh no. I don't need that. Like,
don't y'all want to see a Tribble story?
We got that short track. We're fine.
Yeah, that's never again.
Yeah, some people like really. I know at least 2 of y'all really hate that.
Oh,
It is literally the only thing that it did not exist. It doesn't. It's not in canon. I don't care if it was on TV. There's a commercial for Tribble. Yeah. Dave and I are both on the same.
I didn't think it was that bad. I don't.
It was.
Some people really hate it. Really hate it. I'm much more disturbed by Worf calling Section 31 a critical part of Starfleet, but that's just me.
Maybe that was part of his humor that he was trying out.
Yeah, I like that.
He's like, oh no,
it's an easy out.
That's the joke. Just don't say anything.
I was being ironic.
Yeah.
Well, I think we're at a good place to call it a night. So sad news, we are going on hiatus for I think 2 weeks. I don't know how I'm going to react to that. Like,
Father is going to sleep.
We haven't skipped a week in like, I don't know. It's been like over 2 years. If you count like there were like a couple of weeks we didn't do like a Tex-Trek podcast, but like I would like talk about Babylon 5 or I was like doing that like in 2021, I think. But yeah, I don't know. When was the last week? Like we didn't like there was nothing on a Friday night where we didn't do anything. It was years ago at this point. So long ago, I don't even remember.
Yeah, Aaron, I don't know if Fathery will be able to sleep. He will be compelled to produce something.
I mean, like
Rachel and I will come on and talk about like the new merch and stuff like that.
I got a shipping notice for some of those like actually existing toys for Star Trek Prodigy Thank
Yeah.
God. Like,
We should do that. That would actually be fun.
that would actually be fun.
Full disclosure, like I
people taking them out of the box because they're easier to
wait,
display
what's
that
that?
way.
I'm sorry, I'm sidetracked. Yeah.
I don't know what the next 2 weeks are gonna be like though, because I'm kind of I put a lot of work and effort into the show, and like it really means the world to me that there's like an audience of people that come back week to week. Either you watch on YouTube or you listen somewhere, and yeah, it's like it feels kind of weird for me to go like radio silent, but I need a break. My personal life has been like very, as great as Star Trek has been lately. Like my personal life has been extremely chaotic and disruptive, and so I'm thinking that's the plan. Is I'll take 2 weeks off, and then we're gonna do some things before we hit the ground with Strange New Worlds on that show premieres June 15th, and we'll be doing the weekly coverage every Friday. There's going to be some fun stuff before that leading up to it. So I'm going to try to get some guests on the show. I haven't reached out to anyone yet, but hopefully someone says yes. I have some other ideas that I'll be sharing in the near future, but yeah, then I think that we'll have 30 weeks of new Trek between Strange New Worlds, Lower Decks, and Prodigy. I don't think we'll have like another break in the year.
Father, you should take that break while you can.
Yeah, like we're probably gonna have at least 1 week where they stack a premiere and a finale on the same night. I think it'll either happen with they'll either put Lower Decks on top of the Strange New Worlds finale, or they'll put the Prodigy premiere on top of the Lower Decks finale.
Need them to do that. That's the like.
I think it'll happen, but we'll find out.
I think this is just a particular problem with like us who are so into it that like, okay, we have stuff planned around these, and we're like.
And other people are just like, oh, cool, 2 Star Treks on one night or whatever.
Yeah. I don't.
So innocent.
Yeah.
I don't love.
That's a lot of work.
Especially when it's a premiere and finale on the same night. I didn't mind as much when it was like weird. Overlapping like 2 episodes, but it did.
Well, no, that was worse because like when it was a premiere and a finale, it's like at least it's only 1 week of overlap.
See,
and then you're done.
It also feels unfair to the show though that's going off.
I think it was for me, especially with Strange New Worlds and Picard. It felt like I didn't get enough celebration of the Picard finale, and I didn't get enough celebration of the Strange New Worlds premiere because we were celebrating both.
I mean, it makes a lot of sense from a business standpoint because you get people you get it like both trending, like they boost each other in the algorithms. People are talking about Star Trek Picard and Star Trek Strange New Worlds at the same time. They drive each other up in the algorithms. And you also you bring people in before they have time to unsubscribe from Paramount Plus.
Oh no, there's more. I have to say.
So I it makes sense from like a business perspective, but as far as like what I do, it like I have to take a day off of work from my day job whenever that happens. It's like I literally like use a PTO day. It's a big deal, but it's very rewarding
after,
work.
The Picard finale, like I spent half a day on Twitter just like responding to things and posting, it's like, so it was like it takes up a lot of your time when you're actually trying to produce content and
but it should be a pretty fun year. We're not gonna have like quite as much Star Trek this year as we had last year because we had a lot last year. I think it was 51 episodes or 50 episodes total.
Wow,
it's the most since 1998.
That's
but
crazy.
Yeah, we're not going to have quite that many. I think we're only going to end up with 40 this year when the dust settles and it's all said and done. But we're off to a good the first 10 that we got with Picard. People have been very, very happy with, and Strange New Worlds. If season 2 gets anywhere near the same kind of love that season 1 got, I think we're set for another great year of Star Trek. So I'll be looking forward to all of that stuff. And until next time, as always, live long and prosper, y'all.
Listen to the Tex-Trek podcast through Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify, or at tex-trek.com. Like us on Facebook at facebook.com/tex-trek. And follow Fathery on Twitter at TXTrek. Please support us by liking our videos and subscribing to our channel on YouTube. Thank you and take care.